Hello, and welcome to another episode of EQcast. I'm your host, Christy Pritchard. Thanks so much for joining us on this unconventional sideshow of healing and self-betterment. This is where you can find unscripted conversations with authentic humans sharing their trials and triumphs around their emotional wellness journey. We keep it light, but we can get dark, so fasten your seatbelts. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I have a lovely guest with me from Boston. Her name is Lorren Rodriguez. Hi Lorren, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Awesome, anytime. She's a single mom of two with one son on the spectrum. She works as a behavioral therapist for children on the spectrum, and now she coaches mothers with autistic children to learn how to take care of their own emotional needs as well as their child's. Thanks again for being here. I've learned so much in the last few days about autism and the spectrum preparing to have you on the show. There's a lot of information out there.
Yes, it's definitely a lot to learn.
Yeah, no kidding. And so do you mind telling the listeners a little bit about what the spectrum is?
Yes, so each person, it may look different. Neurologically speaking, it's a developmental disorder. It affects his social skills, emotional skills, impaired communication. But I do want to emphasize that it's not considered a learning disability.
Okay.
The developmental part of it may affect their learning at school, but it's not considered a learning disability. But it affects the communication, social skills, and some of the early on common symptoms. I don't want to say symptoms, but signs.
Signs, yeah.
Yes, I would say a child may not be playing functionally with a toy. I've seen kids just spinning a toy or just banging on toys, doing things very repetitive.
Right.
Almost like OCD.
Mm-hmm.
Social can be socially awkward or may isolate from other children, may not have that speech developmental at the age that they're supposed to. So those are some of the things that people can understand. Again, as a spectrum
to look out for. Yeah.
Yes,
and what
exactly.
kind of age would you start looking out for this? Pretty young if they're playing with toys and if you can notice from that.
Most parents I've seen 16 months being diagnosed with autism. Sometimes they regress. Sometimes they did speak at the age of 1 and 2, and all of a sudden they just regress for whatever reason, and then they get diagnosed with autism.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah.
And I was just curious, after doing some research and digging around a little bit, do you think it's more prevalent now than it was in previous generations? Or are we just talking about autism a little bit more because there's more information out there?
Yes, it's definitely a lot more common now. Now it's last year of research, CDC said 1 in 54 children has autism.
Oh, wow. And how many do you think it was when we were growing up as kids?
I would say, 1 in a few hundreds, I would
believe.
Wow. I'm not sure about that, but it would definitely has been more common now.
Interesting.
There's been many different theories behind it too. So it's becoming more and more common. And I think that that's why we see so much awareness and education behind it, because we hear about it, but we really don't know much of it, which is one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I want to bring that voice out there.
Amazing. Beautiful. With it being more prevalent, do they know where it may be stemming from then? Are there theories around this?
There's many different theories. I've heard people talk about vaccines. Maybe the vaccines get as babies, they may get autism. That's one theory.
I actually heard on the Mayo Clinic YouTube channel I was watching today, I heard that the doctor lost his position because of that. And it's pretty interesting how someone with potentially a valid theory would just get, and it's really hard to say with all the information that's out there today, and I'm not going pro or against, but it just shocked me to hear that he lost his license after writing that paper and nothing else was ever mentioned of it again. But
absolutely, there's actually a lot of research to back that up, and again, like you said, I'm not pro or against it. It's just things that are out there.
Yeah, it's good to take note of this.
Absolutely. Another theory is I've heard of environmental genetics. Maybe my parents ate something, or the pollution in the air, and carried on to me, and et cetera. And it just goes down the line, and that may affect a child to be diagnosed with autism.
Interesting.
Another theory, I would say it can be just in the genes. I've seen parents that remarried with another partner, and then their child have autism, you know.
And with that said too, continue.
Yeah, there's just been many different theories. It can be age.
Yeah,
too.
That's what I was just going to mention. Yeah. Excellent.
So I've seen that happen as well.
So the older, either the man or the woman, can lead to an autistic child. That's interesting. I just read that as well the other day. I was surprised because I have a lot of friends. Since I'm 41, a lot of my friends are having kids now. Either they had their first batch already or they're going through it for the first time in their late 30s and early 40s. And I didn't realize that. Not to scare anyone else off of having children. I have lots
Yeah.
of friends who've had kids later on in life. My aunt had my cousin when she was 41, 20 years ago. So it's not always the case, but I think it's just good to keep note of all the different ways and to make sure we're eating clean and trying to breathe clean air if we can, if we have the option to do so, and drink good water and all that stuff. But you never know. Genetics is quite a thing. And so, can you move along the spectrum if you are diagnosed, say, farther up the spectrum with certain therapies and certain methods? Can you move?
So there's many different types of help that you can do. From example, I'm a behavioral therapist, which is in the ABA field, which is applied behavior analysis. Mm-hmm. So what I do, I work with mostly preschool age, and I help them just play functionally with a toy, have more social communication skills and things like that. It's something that it can improve over time with therapy. And I think it's also important for parents to help as well, because I can only do so much, but we want the support from everyone. And I think as time goes on, it can definitely improve. But I just want to emphasize too that having a child on the spectrum, like, yes, it can be challenging, but it's also a beautiful journey. It's a blessing. I've met the most lovable children. I have children that are so smart, but they may lack the social skills, emotional skills. Yeah. So it is a beautiful journey. You know, I don't want, because we have awareness, but we also need acceptance.
Oh, of course, 100%. Yeah. The first part of this was just to bring awareness into how it looks and just on a more biological level. Yes. And yeah, the next question I was actually just going to ask is a little bit more about your son's journey with it and then yours as well. And yeah, when you found out, because he's how old?
He's 12 now. He will be 13 in September. So I will be a mom of a teenager soon.
Oh, wow. I bid you good luck with that.
Thank you.
Anytime. I know myself as a teenager, you know, some of them are great. So let's hope. But with his actual diagnosis, then how old was he when he became diagnosed?
Well, he was between the age of 3 and 4.
Oh, okay. So quite young then. Yeah.
Yeah, he was young. I've noticed early signs. And I noticed more because my mom always worked with children. So I think that's what helped me to know, okay, there's something that I need to check out, see what's wrong.
Oh, well, good for you. And then from there, did you start doing behavioral therapy through that, like through your own personal experience?
So my whole life, I've been in the finance world. But I actually switched careers a few years ago.
Oh, good for you.
Just because of this, I have heart for special needs kids, especially autism. Yeah. And I honestly love what I do. Oh, and I've been doing it for a few years now, and I know I made the right choice. So
good for you. And you're giving back and you get to live a life of service and your heart is full.
Yes, thank you.
Amazing. I love that. That's so great. And, you know, changing careers at any time in your life is, I've done it a few times. And as long as it's for the right reasons, which clearly yours are, it always works out best in the end. And you just feel more fulfilled. And that's the whole point of this journey, as far as I'm concerned anyways. And for advocating to allow more acceptance into the community, how are you going about doing that? Because I know you do with your Atypical Ladies Instagram page, what we'll talk about at the end as well. You do a lot of advocation through there. And so how did you get into that element of it and helping out with the moms as well?
Yeah, so once I started in this field, I started seeing I was learning so much too, you know, because you definitely learn, especially working with the kids and the parents firsthand, because I do home therapy. So I'm in their personal space.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
So once I started with that journey, I realized, wow, you know, this needs a voice. Like, more people need to understand what autism is, how it affects you, how it affects your family, your spouse, yourself as a mom. Definitely. So once I started seeing that, I was like, okay, I took a life coaching class. Cool. I created the Instagram and I've been getting a lot of good feedback, and I just talk to moms on a weekly basis and just give them the tools that I've used in my journey. Yeah. And also just don't forget self-care, self-love, because when we have a child on the spectrum, we focus so much on their therapy.
Exactly. Yeah.
On what they need for school that we get so lost,
Yeah.
okay, what about me?
Yeah, yeah, you can't give unless your cup is full
Yeah.
as well. If you're coming from an empty reservoir, you can't give as much, essentially. So good for you for doing that. And do you work with fathers as well, or just mothers mostly?
If they're open, so I'm definitely open to it. I
Okay.
haven't had the chance to do that, but I think, yes, I think that it needs it too. I've
Yeah, no
seen
kidding.
single fathers that have children on the spectrum, and that's a whole journey in itself,
Right.
because you have to be vulnerable, and
Yeah, yeah. No kidding.
so,
Men are learning that nowadays. So
yes.
that's such a blessing.
It is.
Absolutely. And so when a woman comes to you then and you just teach her certain self-care rituals and how to look after her child as well.
Yeah, so most of them DM me on Instagram and they will reach out like, hey, some of them will ask me about signs that they see in their child, and then I'll give them the resources that they should go to or who to talk to.
Mhm.
And then they just tell me, I feel so frustrated. Like I go out to the store and people just stare at me because there's a lot of judgment behind that. And I posted that on my Instagram. And one of the slides that I posted was, you can see a child having a meltdown and that mom may be so tired of getting that judgment, but it's part of their autism. They're just probably overstimulated with so many people around.
Yeah.
You may see a child that has a pacifier, but maybe that's self-soothing to them and they're 6 years old.
You
It's a
can't
lot that
judge.
comes with that. So
Yeah,
when they go home, I've seen mothers cry,
of course.
because they get judgment from their family.
Yeah.
So accepting your journey in your child
Yeah.
and making sure to have self-care too, having a therapist to talk to. And I'm just here to give you the extra tools too,
Yeah.
And like for me, example, I do it for myself and I try to encourage block out 10 to 15 minutes a day to yourself. If you need to cry
Perfect.
those 10, 15 minutes, do it.
Yeah.
You want to journal, do it. You want to pray, you want to meditate, do it.
Yeah. Whatever floats your boat. Definitely. And that's
Exactly.
so important. So good for you for sticking that through and making people really hear that. I think everyone needs to do that, no matter what your outer life looks like. We all need to take that time, but especially. So when getting your own personal news, how did your life start changing after that? Did you go through any emotional hurdles yourself on your own personal path?
Yes, when I got the news, I cried instantly. I thought I did something wrong. I was really young. I had my son at 21.
Oh wow, yeah.
So I was a first time mom. I was young, and I had no idea, honestly, what really that was. Like I've heard of it, but I never really knew anyone.
Hmm.
Like it was about 13 years ago. I mean, well, less than that, but it was years ago. And
Yeah.
back then there wasn't as many resources there is now.
Yeah.
So I thought I did something wrong. Did I eat something wrong?
No.
Did
Yeah.
I not did I not drink enough water? Like, was it the vaccines? Like, I thought of
All these
everything.
questions go through your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I blamed myself for many years,
Oh.
to be honest. I really did. And that led me to depression. And then I realized about a year ago, wow, I think I've been on and off depression for years now. And I just never realized it. And now that I'm older, it kind of hits you in your 30s when you're more aware of yourself and your emotions. You're like, wait,
Yeah.
I need to see
That's
someone.
what that was. Those bouts where it was hard to get out of bed or I felt so sad. Yeah.
Or go in my closet and start crying so the children won't see me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's being a single mom, having a child on the spectrum, and along with everything else, your daily stressors as an adult, as a mom, and like the mental stigma behind that, especially me, I am Latina, Puerto Rican, and Dominican, and there's a lot of stigma behind that as well.
Mm.
Um, and I think mental health, that voice has progressed a lot, but we still need that. We still need more of that. And
Yeah.
I felt a lot of shame behind that. Like, I don't want to tell anyone I'm depressed. I can take it. I can suck it
Right.
up. But
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm going to
No.
share my story and I know other mothers are going through, I know other people are going through it. So
Mhm.
they need help.
Absolutely. Good
Yes.
for you. Good for you. And it's hard to be vulnerable and put ourselves out there like that. But it's super important because if everyone stays behind their own curtains, everyone assumes everyone else is fine and we all think we're suffering alone. And that's just not the case. So, and then how did you start balancing your own self care after that? You started going to therapy.
Yes. So I've been seeing a therapist for over 2 years now. I used to go every week. Now it's just once a month. And
Yeah.
every day, honestly, in the morning, I have my morning ritual. I'm really into meditation. Personally, that's what
Beautiful.
grounds me, or
Mhm.
even sitting on the floor, sitting outside in the grass.
Yeah, totally. That's excellent. I do that all the time. So I love
I
how you
love
need to have
it.
a yard. Yeah, I do.
Yes.
Yeah, I feel you.
So that grounds me. And I do it with my kids too. because once they see that you take care of yourself and you
Yeah.
have that space, they see, okay, you teach them to self-soothe them, that they teach those skills as well.
Hmm.
It teaches them boundaries, emotional boundaries. They see that I'm taking care of myself. I'm blocking out that time in the morning, at night for myself. And I try to be an example for them.
Amazing. Good for you. And that's the best that we can do is, and if we're looking after ourselves, then
Yes.
those kids will follow suit. Excellent. And so, how are things starting to change for children on the spectrum now in schools and within social circles? Is it because of all this awareness? Have you noticed a shift since your kid was a baby and now almost teenager?
Yes, I think there's a lot of awareness now. There's so many moms that are open, sharing their stories online. Schools, the school that my son goes to, they have an amazing program.
And what's
Um,
the program about? Like, what is that?
just like special education, but the team that they have, they're great.
Awesome.
He got honor rolls, straight A's last year, and I was so happy for him, especially going through COVID
Awesome. Good for
learning.
him.
Yes,
Wonderful.
and I definitely seen a shift as far as social skills go, and I think there needs to be more of that outside of school.
Yeah.
It's hard for my son to make friends, because some people may think that he's socially awkward or he's weird, which as a mom, it makes you sad, but this
Yeah.
is the reality of it.
Yeah.
And also, we need to remember autism does not stop at the age of 18.
No.
And I've seen that they still need that help in after 18 years
Of
old.
course. Well, yeah.
And there is things out there, but I think there needs to be more of it, you
Yeah.
know.
In place for like adults with autism, you mean? Or
Autism, the youth. I've seen kids that they can be great at gymnastics and they're
yeah,
6, 7 years old, but they can't because the place doesn't have any employees that are trained to,
right. To
you
facilitate
know,
for that. Yeah, that's really
yeah.
unfortunate. Yeah, and I've heard that as well because of the ability to focus. Some kids just end up really excelling in math or at an instrument or at art or something, which is a little blessing. I mean, I'm sure there are many blessings in this whole journey, but that might
Yes.
be just another. And
Yes.
so, how is your son navigating with all of this? Is he able to talk openly, to speak openly, and does he tell you what he's going through?
He still has a hard time articulating his feelings. I think he's learning as he gets older, but he's able to tell me what's wrong or when he feels sad.
Yeah.
And but I'm still teaching him. I try to give him tools how to express himself whenever he feels stressed out.
Yeah.
Each child has their own love language. I don't think he's words of affirmation. So as a parent,
Okay.
that's been challenging
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
parent.
Right.
So he's still learning. He's
Yeah.
still evolving as he gets older.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And that's all we can do is just keep evolving and keep learning and keep educating
Yeah.
ourselves and learning new tools and keep going. Are there any particular resources that you wanted to mention to any parents who are listening that have children on the spectrum that they might find useful?
Yeah, so they can always visit my Instagram page, Atypical Ladies, and
Atypical underscore ladies. Yeah.
yeah.
I'll put that in the show notes as well.
And also, if they go through ABA therapy, I'm sure a lot of them are. I think ABA is great. There's home-based therapy. So what I do is home-based therapy, which so ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analyst.
Okay.
And pretty much just given the support that they need. The oldest age I worked with was 11 years old.
Okay.
And she needed more help with the social emotional side of it. And we kind of just did hobbies together. We did art together, just trying to develop that side for social emotional. There is outreach programs. I've seen some fitness places that just focuses on children on the spectrum too.
Oh, wow.
It all depends what state you're in, and every state is a little different, but those are some of the resources they can probably reach out. And their doctors, whatever specialists they have, they can also guide them to other places as well.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like quite a journey and you've been navigating it beautifully. Well done.
Thank you.
And so, yeah, did we, just before we close up here, I think we got through all the things we kind of initially talked about discussing, but is there anything else that you wanted to mention or touch on that we might have missed?
No, I think we covered a lot.
Right. So you did.
Yes, we definitely, there's a lot to learn, but again, it is a journey. It's a beautiful journey. And one thing that I want to say, I've dealt with children that are non-speaking, and that taught me to love someone doesn't need words, honestly, as sappy
Amazing.
as that may
Yeah,
sound.
no, that doesn't sound sappy at all. That sounds beautiful.
Yes,
No,
so I
we
love
can
it.
communicate through body language, through eye contact, even, and all different kinds of ways to express love. So that must have been very interesting. Well, wonderful. And so we've kind of briefly mentioned again where people can find you on social media. That's on Instagram. And that is atypical_ladies. And is there anywhere else, like a website or Facebook or anything that you wanted to mention?
I don't have Facebook, but I will be launching my website soon.
Awesome. And I'm sure that'll be on your Instagram page.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you coming out and sharing. And it was really great to finally connect with you. We actually met on Instagram. So it's
Yes.
really nice to actually connect and see your face and to get a face to all the words that we've been sharing with each other. So thanks for
Thank
coming
you.
out. Of
I'm
course,
grateful to be here.
anytime. Thank you. And thanks to everyone who joined us today, and check in next week. And please, if you are on Apple podcast, can you please drop a review? I'd really, really appreciate it. Please share it with a friend if you took any value from this. It really helps me to continue doing what I love doing and having wonderful people on the podcast like Lorren. So please help me get the word out. Thanks so much, everyone. See you next week. Bye.